All right. Come on in. Come on in. Okay. We'll go ahead and get started. All right. So last week we finished up with the Green Book. And before we ended the live, I asked you, what topic you wanted me to discuss this week. And overwhelmingly, the Great Migration was mentioned. I said, fine. All right. So I'll go over that. And, as usual, if you have questions, just type in the chat section and I will respond. Okay. All right. So we'll go ahead and get started. We know people will be joining the live chat as we proceed. All right. So first of all, you may have, how you doing, Julian? You may have become familiar with this in your history class. Those of you, if you love history as much as I do, you will remember that this topic is talked about. So don't know if you're aware that actually the Great Migration happened in two waves. So it was from like 1916 through roughly 1930. We know 29, the market crashed, the Great Depression. So wasn't a heck of a lot of traveling being done then. There was some movement, but not as much. So that was the first wave. The second wave was, now how you doing, Reese Cup? All right. The second wave was 1940 to 1970. So if you look at the demographics and you look at northern cities now here in America, that's why they have the makeup that they do, okay, as a result of this Great Migration. Because prior to the Great Migration beginning, the first wave, about 90% of African Americans lived in the South. We know we are tied to the land. We were sharecropping pretty much after slavery. So just keep that in mind. All right. So there's that. Also, the north, not only did we migrate north, we also migrated west, obviously looking for other opportunities. Okay, is basically what we were trying to do, trying to find other opportunities. We know what was going on in the South, of course, segregation, the Black Code, Jim Crow laws, things of that nature. So some of the northern cities, and if you look now at the demographics, if you look at Detroit, New York, Chicago, Pittsburgh, if you look at these cities, again, these are some of the major cities that we were attracted to. So again, some of the causes, segregation, we know lynching was profound back then. Labor shortages in the North, okay, that was a major factor, and we'll get back to that later, and some of the issues that labor shortage caused. So what happened was World War I, okay, created a labor shortage. So as more men were leaving to go fight in World War I, well, there wasn't enough labor. There was a shortage. So they started going to the South and recruiting asking African Americans to move north. And so that's, that started that way. Folks, please go back and hit the like button, if you will. Thank you. Okay. And again, in the South, how you doing, Janice? There's a lack of economic, social opportunity. Most southern states, you could not vote. So you were just very, very limited in the southern states. Okay. So here's where the Black newspapers came in. So far as the Great Migration is concerned. The Chicago Defender, they played a major role, okay, in the Great Migration. So it was so profound that southern cities started outlawing. They would not allow Black newspapers to be sold because there were so many African Americans who were leaving. And, as they're leaving, this is who's going to do the work on the farms, okay, the agriculture. So there was that. So the Black newspapers, especially the Chicago Defender, they even printed one-way train schedules, okay? And come on up here and you can do things here that you can't do there. Now, they didn't tell them. So this was, quote unquote, the promised land, but they found a lot of issues and problems once they got there, okay? So the publisher, Robert Abbott of the Chicago Defender, how you doing, Mo Dollars? All right. He became a millionaire, actually. There's also the Pittsburgh Courier. I don't know if you're familiar with any of these. That was by Robert Vann, and then the California Eagle by Charlotta Bass. Okay. Now you got to remember now during this time, okay, if you were saying anything contrary to what the U.S. government was saying, you could really be in trouble. So we'll get back to that. Like, how you doing, Daniel? All right. All right. Good to see you. You told me you were coming today. Glad you're here. So also, white Southerners thought when the initial migration started, like, oh, they'll be back. They're not suited for cold weather. As soon as winter comes, they'll be hightailing it back home. That did not happen. So then they said, we have to do something to stop this. So what they did was they started to have the authorities to, sometimes Black men would be, waiting at the train stations with a one-way ticket trying to go to Chicago. They would be thrown in jail for vagrancy. So they were trying to stop them from leaving. Leave some comments in the comment section, folks, if you were not aware of this, okay? And also some other videos and things that I have during the Great Floods. They were made, to do, work. They would arrest them so that they could, help build a dam to stop. So all kinds of stuff we can talk about. So what happened to the Southern economy? It started to flounder. They started to suffer as a result of the Great Migration. So Southern towns, again, they began to ban the sale of African American newspapers. Okay, so like we've got, because in the newspapers, the African American newspapers had these ads, come north, there are jobs, you can live where you want, you can, have a better life, better way of life. So they were like, oh no, we can't have that. We've got to stop those newspapers. All right. So how are you going to get the newspapers to the people? Glad you asked. So the sleeping car porters. How many of you are familiar with the Pullman porters? Type in the comment section. If you're a history person like myself, all right, I can talk history all day and night. As a matter of fact, I don't know why that's not what I'm teaching. I love history. I can talk all day. The sleeping car porters. At that time, that was a distinguished profession for African Americans. So they were, Robert Abbott, the owner of the Chicago Defender, he would give them bundles because he was like, we've got to get the news out. He would give them bundles of paper. And as they're traveling, they traveled all over. They would throw bundles of newspapers out in the countryside, and someone would pick it up and distribute it to the African American population, of course, on the low, because they weren't supposed to have those. So the Pullman porters, what they did when they were given the newspapers, they would hide them on the train. Okay, so anyway, the Pullman porters, they played a significant role in the Great Migration. Okay, so we always found a way to circumvent or get around rules, particularly something as serious as that. So let's get back to, oh, before I forget. Now I know no one looks at video cassettes anymore. This is one of the best documentaries, and I've had it for years. Okay, I tell you, I love history. So I have a lot of video cassette as well as DVD series as it relates to not just Black history, but as it relates to the Civil War, anything with World War II. I just love history. So this is one of the best documentaries. Okay. And I've had it. This came out in 95. So yeah, some of you weren't born then, but yeah, I've had this for a while. The Promised Land. So if you love this topic, it would behoove you to order this series. It is excellent, folks. Mo, The Promised Land. Yes. And it tells about each wave of the Great Migration. Oh, it's The Promised Land. Can you see that, folks? That's the name of it. It's a 3 video cassette. Now, obviously, when I purchased it, it's just on VHS. Of course, you can probably stream it somewhere, or you can probably purchase the DVD somewhere. Okay. I still hold on to my video cassettes. All right. I'm just not willing to let go of the past. But 3 video cassette series: Strong Men Keep It Coming, A Dream Deferred, Take Me to Chicago. So check that out if you like this topic. Okay. All right. So there's that. Rescott, me too. Okay, Rescott, perfect. So again, let's look at some of the issues that were caused because they were, oh, come on, everything's going to be wonderful. Now, you guys know whenever someone tells you everything's going to be wonderful, when you get there, you're like, this is not what I signed up for. Hey, you deal with it. So what were some of the issues they had to deal with? Again, the Pittsburgh Courier. Now, when the World War started, World War I and World War II, the Black newspapers were telling African Americans, well, you don't have your rights. So, are you going to go fight in this war? And of course, the U.S. government, that's not what they want to hear. And you can be accused of sedition and a riot and revolt and all that, trying to overthrow the government. You don't need that in your life. Now, Charlotta Bass of the California Eagle. So basically, folks, back then, if you were a history person like myself, particularly in the 40s and 50s, if you were accused of being a communist, I don't care what color you were. How you doing? Fine. How you doing, friend? You guys don't forget to go support Fine as Wine. I'm still trying to get him to FedEx me a plate because he's got some good stuff cooking over there on his channel. Check him out. Oh, it's mwah. Okay. So hit that. Thank you, Fine. Thank you, dear. Yeah, hit that like button, folks. It's fine. We're just talking about the great migration of African Americans from the South to the northern cities. What were some of the causes? What were some of the, issues that developed as a result of them migrating? Of course, if you look at all the large northern cities, and we, of course, migrated out west as well. But if you look, they're pretty much primarily, largely still African American. Now, some people, they went there for jobs, they're retiring, they're moving back south. All right. So, but if you look at it, the world wars were major factors. Okay. Because all the men of fighting age, they were going to fight the wars. Now, remember, folks, the military was not desegregated until 1948 from President Truman. So, even those of us who were in the military, it was segregated. And from one of the videos I watched earlier, usually they put people in charge of the Black units who were Southerners because they said, well, they know how to handle African Americans. So take from that what you will. All right. So again, this caused issues with all these, about roughly 6 million people. Okay. So we're talking about a large percentage of people. They're going into these cities. So if you guys are familiar, what happened in 1919 is called the Red Summer. There were race riots everywhere. So what happened? As African Americans started moving to northern cities, these people who were already there, okay, white Americans felt threatened. They're coming for our jobs. They were recruited. They're coming for our jobs, overcrowding, competition for housing. Hey, it caused a whole new set of issues. Okay. And again, once blacks, African Americans, got to the north, they're like, well, yeah, we have more freedoms, but you were still being discriminated against. All right. It was just more subtle. Okay. And it wasn't, you can vote and you can do this, or if you go to do something, you may not see a sign white and colored, but it was implied. And if you went in there, you knew you weren't welcome. Okay. So those are some of the things that they encountered. And again, major issues, the J. Edgar Hoover. Now we know he was a son of a gun. All right. He, at that time, was trying to accuse the black press of, again, being communist. And again, once during that time, if someone said you were a communist, you were blackballed or blacklisted. You couldn't get a job. You couldn't do anything. And even Charlotta Bass, which was sad, who owned the California Eagle, African American she was, when he said that about her, even black African Americans stopped buying her paper. So if you were deemed a communist back then, that was a death blow. Okay. So Red Summer, racial friction, overcrowding, housing. And as we look, what did they start to do? So we thought, oh, this is wonderful. They started building housing projects. Well, folks, we know what happened with the housing projects. Okay. Just waiting for disaster. All right. So they wouldn't say, or if you look, and if you want, I'll share some documentary links down in the description box. If you go and look at some of the old documentaries when an African American family moved into a white neighborhood, in Chicago, all right, major race riots. So, again, the North was not all it was cracked up to be. All right. But of course, now, the flip side, you were able to make a decent wage. Now, if you look at the North now, folks, all the jobs are gone. So everyone's complaining about how bad the northern cities are. There are no jobs. All right. So when these people started the Great Migration, there were jobs. If you ordered that video series, people could come up from Alabama, Mississippi one day, the very next day they had 2 or 3 jobs. You can't do, those days are gone. So we know all the jobs, pretty much have gone overseas. So everyone's talking about how bad the northern cities are, but we have to look at why. When the jobs left, what else do you have? I have a large swath of people unemployable, that no jobs. What are they going to do? All right. So we have to come up with a solution to that instead of just saying, oh, these northern cities, they're horrible. How you doing? Tina? They're just time. Okay, that's okay. That's okay. We're just finishing up with the Great Migration. What were some of the causes, some solutions, and why the northern cities are in the situation that they're in now. And of course, Tina, basically when the jobs left, the cities just deteriorated. And then, you have all these people, they don't have jobs, they're in housing projects. What do you expect to happen? Something wonderful. All right. So just keep that in mind, folks. That's pretty much all I had to share with you. Who has a question about anything? No one has any questions about the Great Migration and the role that the black press played in spreading the news, telling people leave the South, come north, come west. Their jobs galore, more freedoms. Okay, so what do you think? And Tina, I shared the video cassette series, The Promised Land. Excellent video cassette series. Okay. One of the best. I've had it for years. You can probably purchase it on DVD now, probably stream it somewhere, but that's one of the best. And they have several documentaries on YouTube as well. So if you have an interest in that, I may share a couple of links down below in the description box so you can go and view one of those videos, okay? Any questions? All right. Thank you, Tina. Yeah, folks, please hit the like button if you will. If you enjoyed the content, share the video on your Facebook, your Instagram pages, whatever social media sites that you have. Please share the video, okay? And also tell me what topic you want me to discuss next week. Type it in the chat section, okay? And we'll move on from there. And I have a few questions for you. Let's see if we can get someone to answer them, okay? All right. Thank you, Mo. Question number 1. Now, if you weren't here in the beginning, you may not know this, but you may have to Google it. How were African American newspapers distributed to African Americans in the South? Now, those of you who weren't here at the beginning, Southern authorities began to ban African American newspapers. They would not allow them to be sold to the African American population because they were leaving the South. So they saw the labor leaving. They didn't have anyone to do the work. So I'll ask again. How are African American newspapers distributed to African Americans in the South? If you know the answer, type it. All right, Janice said the train. Okay, more specific, Janice. Okay, you're right. Be a little more specific. Okay, what did they have to do? Okay. Well, I'll get back to you. Train. Okay, we said train, but what did they have to the Pullman porters? Okay, good. By train, very good. What else? What did they just walk up on the train with the papers, the porters? Okay. Didn't they have to do it in secrecy? Yeah. Okay. Because remember, they said no African American newspapers. Okay. Question number 2. How did they just toss it off. Very good. How did the Southern authorities try to stop the Great Migration? I mentioned it earlier. Yeah, that's right, Janice. They'd hide them and throw them out in the countryside, and someone would pick them up and distribute them secretly. How did the Southern authorities, okay, so Janice, how did the Southern authorities try to stop the Great Migration? Remember, initially they said, oh, they'll be back when they can't stand the cold weather. Then when all these millions of people started leaving, they said, we got to stop this. So what did the authorities try to do to stop the Great Migration? Let's see who was listening. And who completed my quiz from last week's video that I included in the description box? Haven't seen any results yet. How did they started arresting people, Daniel. Remember, people could be at the train station just waiting to move to Chicago, and they arrest them from, on a trumped up charge of vagrancy. Very good. Okay, that's Daniel. All right. Question number 3. Define the word sedition. And I mentioned it earlier. What does the word sedition mean? S-E-D-I-T-I-O-N. Sedition. What does the word or term sedition mean? Okay, no one has it yet. S-E-D-I-T-I-O-N. Sedition. All right, I'm still waiting on a winner. I need more than that, Mo. Mo, you got it, but I need more. Incites riot. Yeah. Okay. You're inciting a riot. You're encouraging an overthrow of the government. And that's what they accused them of doing. Incites riot speech. Mo riot. Okay. I got to do a flip between right. Okay, Janice, you're right. So I think between Mo and Reese, I gotta flip. I'll put both your names in the hat and see who I pull out, because both of you had a piece of it. Okay. So we have Janice and Daniel. Daniel, you're gonna have to email me your Cash App info. All right. So we have Reese Cup, and who else? And Mo. Go back and hit the like button for me, folks. The third question is already answered, Julian. Mo answered it earlier. Mo and Reese. Okay. All right. Daniel, don't forget to email me your Cash App information so I can put the money in your account. Reese Cup. Yep. Yeah, Julian, I said Reese Cup answered it earlier. She answered incites riots. And that's basically what it is: inciting violence, inciting riots, trying to overthrow authority. That's what that is basically. Okay. All right. What do you guys want me to talk about next Sunday? Hey, Mary. Mary, you're late. You can go back and watch the video. We had a good time. All right. Check it out. Type it. Now, remember, those of you who have won, go back. Once I see you've left a comment in the comment section, you overslept. Oh, my goodness. Okay. Don't forget to share it on Facebook, Mary. Thank you, dear. Don't forget, once you leave a comment in the comment section, I will place the money in your Cash App account. Daniel, you're the only person. I'm pretty sure I don't have your Cash App. So make sure you email that to me so I can get you paid. Okay. All right. Type in the comment section. You want me to do? Okay, Julian. Underground Railroad. Okay. Who else has an idea for next week? And if we talk about topics that people are familiar with, I may just do some fun facts, some things that you may not know. All right. Because we've all heard of the Underground Railroad, but there are a lot of facts. I look at a lot of videos on descendants of people whose parents, whose ancestors actually participated in the Underground Railroad. So it's really interesting. I love it. All right. Sounds good? Okay. All right. I'm going to end the stream. My winners, I'm waiting for you to leave a comment in the comment section, and I'll see you here. Thank you again for joining Rolynn's Reviews, Sibert Sense Report. Remember, we're trying to educate, empower, encourage you to be the best that you can always be. All right. Congrats, everyone. And I will see you next Sunday. Be safe, folks.